In this video, I'll be discussing page layouts inside of AutoCAD and then also how we go about publishing our drawings when we're finished with them. And to start out with, I want to show you another example of a real project and how their construction document set has been set up. So looking at this project, we are viewing the cover sheet of the project, okay? And if we look down here in the bottom right corner of what is known as the title block, we can see that this is the G100 sheet, and it's the cover sheet which contains the drawing index and code information. All right, so just looking at this sheet of paper, there's a lot of information going on, but basically all we're going to be worrying about for this video is the title block. So the title block is this bar of information that runs along the right-hand side of the page, and then also this sort of border, so this line here. This other information is not something we're really going to be focusing on right now, but this is just an example of a typical cover sheet for a real project. So on our title block, there's a bunch of standard information that is always going to be on there. For example, on the upper right-hand corner, you're usually going to see logos of the companies involved with the project. So you can see my firm here, Vocon. Our logo is displayed first in the upper right-hand corner. And then we also have the logo of the engineers who are being consulted and who we're working with for the project. So their information goes there below ours. You might also see information related to the client, such as their logo and name and their address and things like that too. Moving down, we have what's known as a key plan. Key plans you won't really have to worry about too much, but basically these just show you what areas of the building are being worked on. So anything with a gray crosshatch right here is what's known as not in contract. So that means that those portions of the building are not being worked on within the renovation, and then anything that doesn't have that crosshatch is being worked on and is part of the project. This section here is where you would put the seal of the architect who is reviewing the drawings. We don't really have to worry about that, but that's something that you're always going to see on a professional set, is a seal with the signature of the architect who reviewed it and signed off on it. And then below that we have the name of the client, and then we have the title of the project, their address, things like that. Below that is a drawing release. So this is basically a table that shows revisions. So you can see here we have a number, a date, and a description, and this is the first issue of this set of drawings. So this is the very first version of this drawing set that was made. We can see the day it was made, and we can see that that is the permit set. As you go through a real project, you're going to have to do revisions, most likely. So you'll send it out, and then they'll start working on it, and it's going to be going back and forth between you and the contractors, but there might be things in the design that have to change. So they will give you feedback, and then you'll go back and you'll make those revisions, and you'll create a new set of drawings, and then you'll put that back out. Now, every time you create a revision set, you have to indicate that here in the drawing release by saying what revision number it is, the date, and then in the descriptions, you're going to note any like just a brief description of the revisions that are within the new version of the drawing set. Okay? And then below that, obviously, the sheet title and sheet number. The actual information that is present on a title block might vary slightly from firm to firm, but usually it has a set of basic information. But like you might also see additional information such as the drawing scale, so the scale of any drawings that are on the sheet, as well as information of who drew the drawings or who checked the drawings, or dates, things like that. Those might also be on there, but they aren't always on there. Now, something important to note is the naming convention for the drawings that are within this set. So if I zoom in here to my drawing index, you can see here a breakdown of the different drawings that are within this set. So here's the sheet number and the sheet name. You can see that we have 3 G sheets, so G1 or G100, G201, and G202. These are all general sheets, so anything not specifically related to a drawing, just general information about the project. So G100, the sheet we're on right now, is the cover sheet. And then after that, we have G201 that contains general notes, G202 that contains descriptions of abbreviations and symbols that are used throughout the set. After that, we get into the architectural drawings, and these are the things that we're mostly going to be worried about in our work. So things like the floor plans, the construction plans, reflected ceiling plans, finish plans, details, furniture. All right. After that, you get into the engineering drawings. So MEP, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and they have their own set of drawings too. And each time you get into a new discipline, you're going to get an abbreviation of that discipline as the first letter in the drawing name. Okay, so all the architectural drawings will have an A as the first letter. Mechanical is going to have an M. Electrical will have an E. Plumbing will have a P. And there's a standard for how we number each of our sheets as well. So you can see here these first numbers. So for example, A, and then 1, and then 0, 0. That's anything with a 1 is usually going to be some type of a floor plan. Anything with a 5 in this case is going to be an elevation. Anything with a 7 is going to be some type of a reflected ceiling plan. And then anything with a 9 is going to be some sort of a millwork detail. There's a standard for the second number and what drawing that represents, and that's defined by AIA. And in some cases, it's adhered to, usually it's pretty universal, but there are some times where different firms will set up their own numbering conventions for what type of drawing is assigned to this second number here. I'm actually going to jump over to that really quick. I have it pulled up, and I'll show you the AIA standards. So if we come over here to construction document sheet numbers and order, you can see that we have a breakdown of what sort of information is located in our drawing numbers. So first, like I said, we have a discipline designator. So the A is going to indicate architecture. The next number, so the first number, is the sheet type, and then after that, the two numbers after that indicate the sequence. Okay, so just discipline designator, like we mentioned, these are just our disciplines that we have. Architectural, interiors, any engineering, so mechanical, electrical, stuff like that. It's usually more common to see an A for architecture than an I for interiors. It just really depends on the firm you're working at, but in most of my experience, the firms I've been working at have set everything up as an A for the discipline. So going on, we have our sheet types. So this is what has been set up by AIA as the standard for the different sheet types. So anything with a 0 is going to be a general, and it's going to be things like your legends, your symbol legends, abbreviations, and general notes, or like your cover pages, stuff like that. Below that, anything with a 1 is going to be a plan drawing. Anything with a 2 will be an elevation drawing. Anything with a 3 section, and so on. Okay. And then we have sequence numbers. So then the sequence numbers are usually going to indicate, specific sequences of the drawings that are within those sheet types. Okay. These are just some examples, but basically these two numbers are like, if you had, like, so it says 07 here, that would be like you have 7 plan drawings within your plans section. Okay, so you're just going to go from 01 all the way up to however many you have. So for example, if I had like 3 construction drawings, my sheets might be numbered A101, A102, and A103, for example. All right. So let me go back to the PDF really quick and make sure I'm not missing anything I wanted to cover. Okay, I think we got everything that we wanted to discuss inside of this PDF file here. I'm going to jump over now to AutoCAD, and I'm going to show you how we can start setting up our drawing sheets for publishing. All right, so here we are in AutoCAD, and I'm using our practical assignment for an example of how to go ahead and set up our drawings for publishing. So this is actually the stuff that you're going to want to do for the practical assignment when you need to turn it in. I'm not going to be recovering this in the later practical assignment video that I'm going to be putting out for this week. So whenever you get to setting up your drawings for the practical assignment, just refer to this section of this video for a guide on how to do that. All right, but here we are in our file. And you can see here at the bottom, we have our layout tabs. We talked about these briefly in the past few weeks, but now we're going to dive into these in detail. So if you remember from a couple weeks ago, I mentioned that the normal drawing space that we're in with our gray grid as our background, this is what's known as our model space. And we can tell that we're in our model space by the first tab being highlighted, and also here in the status bar we have the word model, which is indicating that we are currently inside the model space. Now what we want to do when we set up our drawings to print them out is take essentially views of our model space and lay them out on a piece of paper, which is known as our paper space, and that is what we're going to end up printing out on the printer. Okay? So if I go down here to my layouts, by default we always have a layout 1 and a layout 2. All right, so if I click on my layout 1, this is going to give me just a default layout to work with. So I think by default right now in this file, this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, so just a regular old letter size piece of paper that you're used to with just a regular old printer. For this assignment, we're going to be using 11 by 17 sheets of paper, and that's what you'll be setting your drawing up on. Now you're not actually going to be printing it out physically, you're going to be creating a PDF file of it and sending it to me, but all the drawings will be set up as if they were being printed out on an 11 by 17 piece of paper. Okay? So basically what you're seeing here on this sheet of paper, okay, the white is representing our paper, and then you're going to have a little window right here. If you hover over that window, you're going to see this little other window pop up with information, and this is telling you that this is what's known as a viewport. Okay, so viewports are basically a window to elements inside of your model space of your drawing. Okay, now what we can do with viewports is we can navigate within them and set up our drawings exactly how we want them to appear on the piece of paper. Okay, so right now I'm inside of my paper space. I can't interact directly with any of the objects that are inside of my model space, but what I can do is double click within this space, and you can see now not only can I interact with the objects down here, but this is also telling us down here at the bottom in the status bar that we've switched over from paper space to model space. So now I can act like I was in my regular model space here, and I can do anything that I can do in this window inside of my model space here within my sheet of paper. Okay, so I can zoom in and out, I can use any of my commands that I'm used to, and so on. But basically we want to use this to set up our drawing exactly how we want it to appear when it prints out. All right, so for example, let's say I wanted to print out my plan that I have right here. What I would want to do is get my plan in focus, so zoom in and get it, roughly where I want it to be inside of my viewport. And now what I'm going to do is toggle back to my paper space. Okay, so when I have this set up how I want it, you click back on your paper space, and that takes you to being just back on your sheet of paper where you just have these layouts, or you have these viewports. So once you have something set up on your viewport, you can basically highlight the viewport and then use these blue grips to adjust the cropping, for example. So like say I want to crop something out, you can use that to basically control the cropping of what is being shown. And then when you're on your layouts, you can also use normal commands like move or copy for your viewports. So if I were to move this, I can move this anywhere I want on my sheet of paper. And then if I were to copy it, I could create a duplicate of that layout. So now I have two versions of that drawing being shown. Anything that is outside of this white piece of paper is obviously going to be cut off and not printed. So that is our boundary of our piece of paper, is this white that's out here. But you can sort of make viewports and put them anywhere inside of this gray space. Just know that anything that is not on this white sheet of paper will not be printed out, okay? Another thing you can do, instead of just copying viewports around, if you wanted to create a new viewport from scratch, you can use a command that's called mview. So you just type that in, hit enter, and then that prompts you to create a window. So I'm going to select 2 points, and that creates a new viewport for me. Okay. All right, so once we have our drawing in our viewport sort of where we want it, focusing on the part of our drawing that we want, what we want to do is establish a scale for that drawing. So in our situation here, we want to set our drawing scale so that this bathroom is represented at a 1/4 inch. So to set the drawing scale correctly, what you have to do is click on your viewport while you are in the paper space mode. Click on your viewport, and then down here at the bottom right, you're going to see probably what I'm seeing here, just a bunch of decimal numbers. Okay, now when you hover over it, it says this lets you scale the selected viewport. So you want to click on this section, and here you're going to get a flyout of all the different scales you have available. So I want a 1/4 inch scale, so I'm going to find this option here that says 1/4 inch equals 1 foot 0 inches, and I'm going to select it. And now what you're going to see is the drawing has slightly zoomed out, but it's zoomed out at the exact right amount to where these lines are being perfectly represented at a 1/4 inch scale. Okay, so once that's done, I want to just adjust my cropping slightly, get that brought in a little bit closer to my actual drawing. And then once you have that, if you are set on your scale and you have it exactly as you want it, you want to go ahead and click on this lock button right here. All right, when you click on that, you can no longer modify the zoom of the scale. So when I double click to re-enter the viewport, right now I'm in model space now. You can see that right here. So if I do that again and double click inside of that, when I zoom in and out, I'm no longer zooming within the viewport. All right, so if I turn that lock back off, for example, now I can freely zoom in and out, but you can see my scale gets messed up again. Okay, so once you get your scale set to where you want it, you want to make sure this number doesn't change at all. Okay, so you want to make sure that it says a 1/4 inch equals 1 foot 0 inches, and then lock it to make sure that you don't accidentally mess up the scale and make the drawing inaccurate. Okay, so now I'm going to switch back to paper space, and here I have the drawing set at the correct scale and it's locked. Anytime you see the blue icon, the blue lock, that means that it is locked, okay? So you just want to set the scale and then lock it whenever you have it set how you like. Okay, so another thing to note really quick before we get into actually changing the size of our sheet of paper is the actual layer that the viewport goes on. Okay, so if I go back to my home tab here and I click on my layer, or if I click on my viewport, you can see that the layer that the viewport is set to is the 0 layer. Okay, so the 0 layer is basically just the default layer inside of any AutoCAD project. But we want this viewport to be on a specific layer so that the crop region around it, being this black line, doesn't appear on our final drawings when we go to print them out. Okay, so what we want to do, and depending on the drawing template that you selected when you started this project, it may or may not have this layer, but there's a layer that is standard to most drawing templates, and that's what's known as def points. Okay, if you have that, you want to put the layer, or you want to put the viewport, select it, and put it onto the def points layer. Okay, so basically what def points does is it will make it so that this boundary will not show up on your final printed sheet of paper. All right, and that's really important. You don't want that showing up because it just looks bad and it clutters up the drawing. All right, now if you don't have the def points layer, you can go ahead and create a new layer, and you can call it def points, or you can call it viewports, something like that. But what you want to do is create a new layer. The color in this situation doesn't really matter. You can leave it as default. What you're worried about is that the no plot option is selected. Okay, so if I go in here, I'm looking for this window right here where it says plot. So you want to create that new layer. So if I were to call this, if you have it, you can call it def points. If I call it viewports in my situation, I just want to make sure that the printer is turned off in this case, so that way it's not going to be printing. All right, now that you have that layer made and you have the plot option set to no plot, go back to your sheet of paper, and the next thing that we're going to do before we change the actual size of our sheet of paper is talk about something called plot styles. Okay, so plot styles basically go hand in hand with the layers that we've set up inside of our drawing. If you remember from last week when I talked about layers, I mentioned that it's really important to set a specific color value to each layer because there has to be a line weight hierarchy within our drawings to make everything read correctly. Okay? In order for the drawing to print out correctly with the correct line weights, you have to have something that's known as a plot style added into your drawing, and that is going to tell AutoCAD the actual line weight that each color needs to be printed out as. Okay, so there's tons of different plot styles out there, and different firms have different standards for what colors get assigned to different objects. So we are conforming to AIA standards that are defined in the book that I'm using to create this content. So these standards define red for the outlines of walls, cyan for doors, green for windows, things like that. But you know, different firms have different standards for what colors get assigned. And then basically, going hand in hand with those standards, they have their own plot style file. Okay, and what these plot style files do is they look at each color in the drawing, and someone has gone into this file and they've said, okay, if you see the color red, give it the thickest line weight. If you see the color blue, give it a medium line weight. And there's specific pen weights, like numerical pen weights, that are tied to each of the colors. But in order for it to work correctly, you have to correlate the colors in your drawing to a specific plot style file. Okay, so what I've done is I've went in and I've uploaded 2 files, and they're attached to this video. So on Blackboard, whenever you view this video, go ahead and look at the attached files, and you're going to see 2 files. The first one is going to be called ksufull.ctb, and then there's another one called ksuhalf.ctb. Okay, go ahead and download those 2 files and save them to a location where you're going to be able to find them easily. Once you've done that, you want to go back into AutoCAD, like I am now, and you want to type in the command Styles Manager. And then hit enter. And what this command is going to do is it's going to bring up this window that you see in front of you right here. And this is basically just the default location where plot styles live inside of AutoCAD. This is where AutoCAD looks to bring in the plot style files to your drawing. So what you want to do is, in a separate Windows Explorer window, navigate to where you saved those files. Okay, so for example, I have my plot style saved here. You want to highlight those and either copy and paste them into here, or just drag and drop them from there into this folder. Okay, and once you've done it correctly, you should see KSU full and KSU half appear in this list. Okay, once you have that, go ahead and just click X and exit out of that. Okay, now coming up here in just a second, you're going to see how those are used. All right, so once you have those files copied into AutoCAD, you want to be on your layout, your drawing layout, and you want to type the command page setup and hit enter. So whenever you hit enter, you're going to see this window come up that says Page Setup Manager, and you're going to see our 2 layouts right here, Layout 1 and Layout 2. What you want to do at this point is create a new layout type, so basically a new preset for the size. But if I hover over one of these, like right now we're on Layout 1, you can see information about this, like this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Okay, but we want to click on New and create a new layout, and this one's going to be 11 by 17. And when you have 11 by 17 as the name, go ahead and just click OK. And then that's going to bring you to this dialog here. This is basically just a regular old printer dialog that you would see anytime you're printing out like a file from any application. But this is where we set up information about the printer we're going to be using, the paper size, and then the plot style we'll be using. Okay, so the very first thing we want to do is go up here to the right where it says plot style, and we want to find in our list the plot styles that we brought in a moment ago. The one we want to choose is this one right here that says KSU full. Okay, so the difference between these two, the KSU full one is going to be used to print out 95% of your drawings, and this one is going to it's going to print out the line weight at full thickness. Okay. This one here, this is KSU half. This is basically used when you set up your drawings on a large sheet of paper. Let's say, for example, we set up our drawings on a 24 by 36 inch sheet of paper, and then for some reason we need to scale that piece of paper down to fit onto an 8.5 by 11 or 11.5 by 17 piece of paper. you would use this one that says KSU half because that's going to make the line weights read correctly whenever you sort of compress the entire thing down from a big sheet of paper to a small sheet of paper. But since we're not doing that and we're just starting out as 11 by 17 and putting everything at full scale on that sheet of paper, you just want to choose the KSU full option. Okay? All right, so with that done, the next thing that you want to do is go here to where it says printer/plotter, and you want to set this to the option that says AutoCAD PDF high quality print. Okay, so what we're doing here when it says printer/plotter, we're not actually going to be printing this out to a physical piece of paper. The standard thing that you do in the industry is you don't actually print straight out from AutoCAD to the printer. What we do is print to a file. So that's print with air quotes around it. We're not actually printing out. We're essentially saving our drawing as a PDF file. And to do that, we access the print dialog, okay? So it's just like you're printing out to like an actual printer, but instead of choosing an actual printer, you're choosing one of these options that says DWG to PDF, and this is going to just save it out as a PDF file. So that's always called print to file. You're just gonna have to get used to that term. It might be a little bit confusing. It sounds kind of weird that you're printing, but you're not actually printing physically, but that's just what it's called. It's just called printing to a file. Okay, so make sure you have that option set. And then the next thing that we want to do is set our paper size. Okay, so paper size down here where it says, in my case, ANSI full bleed A. Right now it's set to an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. We want to choose the option that says ANSI full bleed B 17 by 11 inches. Okay. Make sure you choose this one that says 17 by 11 inches and not one of these other ones like 11 by 17 inches or even the ones further down that just say ANSI B or ANSI expanded B. We want this one that says ANSI full bleed B 17 by 11 inches. Okay. Now you can see in this list there's a bunch of other options. So there's ones like the ARC series of paper. So we can see we have ARC E, ARC D, and ARC C. And these are just standard paper sizes that you're going to be running into in the architecture and interior design industry. And these are what are used normally for construction document sets. Okay, in our case, we don't need this big of a piece of paper, which is why we're using the 11 by 17. But very common, you're going to be using like an ARC D size layout, so a 24 by 36 inch size layout. Okay, that's going to be most of your projects throughout the program. As you progress, you're going to be setting up sheets to work with ARC D size pieces of paper. All right, but in our case, like I said, make sure you choose ANSI full bleed B 17 by 11 inches. And if you did it correctly, you should see a preview like this that has a layout or a landscape preview of a sheet of paper with the 17 inches running horizontally and the 11 inches running vertically. Okay. After that, let's just toggle on this option here. Well, no, actually, no, leave that off. We'll leave display plot styles off. Everything else should be fine. And then we're just going to hit OK. All right. With that done, that takes us back to the page setup manager. And the next thing we want to do to actually change the sheet of paper, because right now it's still at 8.5 by 11 in size, you want to double click on that new page setup that you created. So I'm going to double click on 11 by 17. And when you did that, you saw the piece of paper in the background get bigger. Okay, go ahead at this point and click on close. And this is essentially what we want. So we still have our viewport here in the corner, and now we have a bigger sheet of paper. Okay, so the next thing to do is add our title block into this sheet. Okay, and to do that, we actually lay a block file that has been defined as a title block, and we insert it directly onto the sheet in paper space. Okay? So on Blackboard, I've provided you with 2 title blocks. So I have a title block for 11 by 17 size paper, and then I have a title block for 24 by 36 size paper. Okay? The 24 by 36 inch size title block, that'll be used for like your projects and things for studio going forward. If you decide to use AutoCAD for anything, you can just use that title block. I just gave that to you just as an extra. The one we're going to use for our project here in this class is the 11 by 17 one, since we made an 11 by 17 size layout. So what you want to do is download those 2 files from Blackboard and save them in a location where you're going to be able to find them easily. And then once you've done that, inside of your layout, you want to go up to the layout tab in the ribbon up here. And I'm sorry, you don't want to go to the layout tab. Go to where it says blocks right here. And you want to find this insert button here. So where it says insert block, click on that. You can also type in the insert command too. That'll do the same thing. All right, so if you either type an insert or you go here to block or insert, and from here you'd want to click on more options, but that takes you to the same dialog box as just typing in insert. When you get to this, you want to click on the browse button, and you want to navigate to where you save those title block files. So in this case, we're going to choose the first one that says CAED title block 11 by 17 .dwg, and the preview should look like this. Go ahead and just click on open, and then leave all of these options here as the default, and then click on OK. That's going to bring up this little edit attributes window. Go ahead and just ignore that for now. Just click OK. And your title block should be inserted perfectly on the sheet of paper in the exact right spot. Okay, so within our title block file, we have a bunch of different fields here. Like I said, we have the sheet number. We have the scale of the drawings that are on the piece of paper. We have the date that the drawing was done. We have the sheet name. We have the project name, and we have the student name. Up here, we have a logo for the CAED. And if you want to edit any of these fields, for example, our first sheet is probably going to be A101. You can just double click on this, and you can type in A101 as the value, and then just click apply and OK, and that's going to change it. And that's how you edit this information inside of here. Okay. But now with that set up, and I'm going to leave you an example file that's showing you what all the information in this title block needs to say. I'm going to show you how you go about setting up different drawings on your sheet of paper. Okay, so with my viewport right here, if I were to move this to a different location where I want it, I'm going to turn off my ortho. I'm just going to move this on my sheet of paper, maybe up here, for example. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy over it to the right to create a duplicate. And now if you think back to last week when I said whenever we want to create a different type of drawing, for example, like a reflected ceiling plan or something like that, we never just want to go into model space and copy the entire drawing over and make a full duplicate of it. We want to just create a duplicate version of the viewport and then change our layer visibility settings within our drawing itself. Okay, so what we did here is create a duplicate of our viewport, and now inside of the second drawing, let's say I want that to be my reflected ceiling plan of the space. I can double click inside of here, and then I can just use my freeze and thaw tools to make the layers that I want visible and hide the layers that I don't want to see. And this is going to be specific to this viewport, okay? So anything that I change inside this viewport is not going to affect this viewport over here. So if I click on freeze and then I go inside this viewport here and then click to freeze this, you can see that when I froze that layer inside this viewport, it stayed visible in this viewport over here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hide some of this other stuff. So my line work for my countertop, my overhead cabinets, my washer and dryer, my door tags, and then my doors. And here we're just left with this, which is what we want. Now what we want to do is go to our Layers Property Manager to control the visibility of the ceiling elements. Okay, so I'm going to bring up my Layer Properties Manager, and you can see here we have two freeze sections. So there's the regular freeze section and there's the viewport freeze section. Right now, what we have in our project is all of our ceiling stuff is universally frozen throughout the entire project. So basically what we want to do is disable that and then refreeze it on a viewport basis. Okay, so I'm going to go in here to my freeze section on all of my ceiling layers. I'm going to unfreeze them. This is going to make them visible in every viewport. Okay. Now, if I go back to my drawing, you can see that this looks correct from my reflected ceiling plan, but now I can see the reflected ceiling plan stuff in this viewport here, where this is just going to be our floor plan. So now what I'm going to do is toggle back to this plan here, okay? And I'm going to use my freeze command inside of this viewport to hide them in this inside of this view. So here I will hide my ceiling pattern, I'll hide my ceiling tag, and I'll hide my can lights. And then I can switch back to my paper space. So now what you're seeing is I have a view where it's just my floor plan, and then I have a view for where it's just my ceiling plan. And we didn't have to duplicate anything to do this. All this information is sitting on top of each other. We're just using the layers and our layer freezing to control what is being shown in each drawing. And we're just creating new viewports to create the different drawings, okay? Something else you can do here while I'm looking at this is it's nice to toggle inside of these viewports and just turn off the grids so that they don't appear on your sheets. The grids aren't going to print out or anything like that, but whenever you're setting up your drawings, it's really nice to just go in and turn off your grid lines so that they don't interfere at all and clutter anything up. All right, so when you're the next thing that we would want to do then is add in a drawing title to this sheet. Okay, so what we did when we started this practical assignment is we brought in our blocks, and our blocks have a bunch of blocks right here that we copied in. So what we want to do is basically bring in this drawing title onto our sheet of paper. Now this should already be loaded in, and we just want to bring this and drop it directly onto our sheet of paper. So if we go to our Insert tab and we scroll down through the list, we should be able to find a drawing label. We just want to select our drawing label, and then we want to place this on our sheet underneath of our drawings. Okay, so if you click on that and then you place it, you're going to get the same edit attributes thing that came up like it did for our title block. Go ahead and just click OK for now to accept the defaults, and we will just leave it at that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that drawing title, and I'm going to edit some things about it. For example, I'm going to turn off the north arrow. So this is the north arrow, and that's not necessary for our purpose, so we're just going to turn that off. And then I can go in and actually double click this and add some information. So if I double click on that and I go to where it says main line, this one's going to say construction plan. We'll do that in all caps. This option where it says line above, just clear that out. Where it says scale, our scale is going to be 1 foot hyphen, well no, 1/4 of an inch equals 1 foot hyphen 0 inches. And then where it says number, we're just going to set this one to be a 1. And then we're going to click OK. So there's our construction plan. And then now what we're going to do is copy this over to the right. And this one is going to be our reflected ceiling plan. So I'm just going to toggle this. I'm going to change the name to be reflected ceiling plan. And then I'm going to change my number to be a 2 and then click OK. All right, so now we have a construction plan and our reflected ceiling plan right beside each other. And normally, like I said previously, these would be on 2 totally different sheets, but since this is such a small project, I'm trying to condense things, and we're just going to keep it like this and just have them both on the same sheet beside each other. Okay? But basically that's how you go ahead and you add in titles and things like that. Those are going to be blocks that you're inserting directly onto your drawing sheet, okay? Using the block insert functions. So then at this point, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a test print so you can get an idea of how that works. Okay, so let's say now I'm all ready to go and I just want to print out my drawing and see how things are looking. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and click on Control and P. And now you get this batch plot option where it's asking you, do you want to plot multiple sheets at one time, or we just want to continue to plot a single sheet? Right now we're just going to plot a single sheet. And now here is all the settings that we configured previously, our sheet size, the printer we want to use, and the plot style. If we hit preview, we can get an idea of how this is looking to make sure it looks correctly. And right now it looks like we have a problem. So my title block and my drawing titles are not printing correctly, so I'm going to need to modify that. Alright, so looking closer, the problem I was having is my title block and my drawing titles are both set up on my viewports layer that I made previously. The viewports layer, remember, we set that to no plot, so we need to fix this and switch the layer that is on. So go ahead and just switch these to a different layer. I'm just going to switch it to the 0 layer for right now, a layer that I know will print out, but if you want, you can create separate layers for them. So you could create a titles layer for your 2 drawing titles and then a title block layer for your title block. But I'm just going to switch them right now to be the 0 layer, and that should work okay. Now I will go back to my print dialog by clicking Control and P, click on continue to plot a single sheet. And then here we're going to click on preview again to see if it works, and there you go. Now you can see that it's working. So this is essentially what it's going to look like when it prints out to the file, and you can see our line weights are being shown nicely. So the red for the walls is nice and bold, and then you can see that the doors are a little bit thinner and the text is a little bit thinner still, and everything looks pretty good. Okay, so now that we have this, we're going to just click on the print button, and now it's going to tell us to find a location where we want to save the file. Okay, so I will navigate to a spot to just do a test print. So then you can give your file a name and then click on save, and it's going to print it out. And now it's going to bring up a preview of the file inside of a PDF application that you have. So if you have Adobe Acrobat, it'll open that. Or if you have a different application, it will open that to show you. But here you can see the preview of what our file is looking like, and it looks pretty good. Okay. So next I'm going to show you really quickly before I end the video the process of setting up a print layout for, well, plotting. I'm going to show you how to plot multiple files at the same time, or multiple layouts at the same time. So what we want to do for this example is I'm going to duplicate this layout. So I'm going to right click on this, then click on move or copy. And this is something that you can do once you have this set up with the title block and everything like you like it. Just go down here, right click on your layout that you have done, just click on move or copy, and then just click on create a copy. Okay, and then that's going to create a duplicate. So you can see now I have layout 1 and layout 1, 2, and they're the exact same, but I don't have to reset up the title block on this new version. Okay, so now that I have 2 copies of my layout, I can go ahead and do Control and P again, or if you don't have, if you're like on a Mac or something and you can't do Control P, you can click on the print button up here, or it's the plot button, you can click on that. And then in this dialog that comes up, go ahead and click on Try Batch Plot, Publish. And now this is a list of all the drawings and layouts that are currently open inside of your AutoCAD session. So if you look, I have multiple projects that are open right now, and I just want to narrow this list down to the individual layouts that I'm concerned about. So I want to find my practical assignment 1, and I want to find layout 1 and layout 1 parentheses 2. So any of these other layouts I actually just want to get rid of. So I'm going to click on this top one here. I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to highlight all of these and then click on the remove sheets button, and that's going to remove them from the list. Then I'm going to click on this last one, this layout 2, and I'm going to remove that as well. So now we just have these 2 sheets right here, and we can click on publish. Do I want to save the current list of sheets? I'm just going to say no. And that's going to print both of those layouts out at the same time. All right, so now that I've done that, what you can do is go down here at the bottom right corner, and there's this little printer icon. If you click on that, that's going to give you a summary of the print job when it's done, and it's going to give you information like if the print job was successful and the file location that was saved to. So in my case, it saved it to the same location where I saved my first PDF file. So if I navigate to that file, I'm going to be able to find those 2 PDFs that it's saved for me. All right, so if I navigate to that file location, I find my other test print that I just did, and if I open that, within this file, I'll be able to see that there are two different sheets. Okay, so I can toggle between them, and you can see they don't change because they're the exact same, but now I have 2 sheets that are combined into one single file. So that's a really nice way of just having AutoCAD generate a single file for you, and that way you don't need to print out all of the layouts individually and then manually combine them together. You can do that way too. You can use a tool such as Adobe Acrobat, if you have that, to combine your files together, your PDF files, into one single PDF, or you can use some sort of an online tool that you upload the pages to, and then they're gonna combine both pages into one single PDF file. But if you want to do it directly from AutoCAD, you can just use that batch print option, and it's gonna do sort of the same thing for you. All right, one final quick thing that I forgot about that I want to show you. So our layout tabs down here, what you can do to be better organized is actually rename these tabs to be whatever you want. So for example, on my first tab, I can right click on this and then choose rename, and then I can call this something like A101, and then I could put I could leave it as that or add something like construction plan. And then I could go to my second layout and I could rename that and call that like A102. And then I could just keep renaming these based on the sheet numbers or the sheet names that are shown on my title block. And that's just a really good way to stay organized with your layouts. But with that, that's the last thing I wanted to show you. That's going to do it for this video.